Hey, welcome. So, I'm not sure if any of you guys have ever felt this, feeling of, um, you want to talk about something. Like in my case, I want to talk about this book. All right, but you know that book is somewhat of a very beloved book. It's like a classic, like literally a classic, and you just feel that what are you even doing here? What are you doing in this space, thinking that you want to talk about this book? That kind of unpleasant feeling that just sort of holds you back from actually raving about that book because you really like it. you know um I'm kind of feeling that right now. Yeah, I feel like whatever I say, it's not going to uh you know contribute anything new to the existing discussion about this book. And I suppose this evening I decided, well, guess what? Maybe that's how it's going to be. I'm not even going to pretend I'm going to contribute something new. But what I do know deep inside my heart is that I like this book, and the more I think about it, the more I love it. Yeah. And this is coming from someone who considers themselves to be a sci-fi newbie. Like, okay, I have read books that are sci-fi in nature. I'm not that completely, I'm not a complete stranger to the realm of sci-fi, of course. But what I'm saying is that my experience with this book, I remember when I first bought it. I think that was like sometime in late last year. I can't really remember. I opened this book and I saw the first page of the story. The first page of the first chapter, and I saw all of those proper nouns, those sci-fi flavored proper nouns that look so strange and intimidating to me. I was instantly petrified. It was scary. And so I closed this book, and then I put it on my shelf, and then I did not take it up again because it was just that scary. I was traumatized for months. And those of you who have read this book, who know what's going on in this book, would probably think, all those months I have missed out on all of those Gethin action. And then one day I just sort of decided, you know what, I'm just going to try reading this book. Partly because I started seeing this book popping up on Bookstagram or BookTube, mostly Bookstagram, people talking about how much they like this book. They read it and they shared it in their Insta stories, and like, and then, I had that moment of FOMO. And I realized that, hey, I have this book on my shelf. Let me just try it again. And I powered through the first chapter. And then I ended up reading this book within 1 week. Yeah, so that's pretty fast for me, for a sluggish reader. This book has about 300 pages. So that's pretty fast, 300 pages in 1 week. So yeah, that's the proof of how much I enjoyed reading this book. Yeah. So what's going on in the left hand of darkness? Why is it like this book that is why is it my favorite? Basically, there are so many things to unpack from this book, and I don't think that I'm going to cover all of those things that I sort of want to say, because I think that would make this video really long, aside from my usual tendency to ramble about nonsense. But I just sort of want to talk about why I find this book to be so in a way, it's a book that resonates with me. Okay, so before that, what is this book about? So we have this character, his name is Genli I. So it's like an envoy of, and he represents this kind of like a space UN kind of a thing, which is kind of like a collective of a union of sorts, of different worlds, different planets. It's called the Ecumen. And he represents the Ecumen as an envoy to this other planet, which is not a member of the Ecumen, called Gethin. He intends to get Gethin to join the Ecumen for the purpose of knowledge and cultural exchange and stuff like that. Trading, trade exchange and stuff like that. So he has been an envoy, and he has been living in Gethin for around 3 years, I think, at the starting of this book. And a few things to note about this planet called Gethin. So the first thing is that, and I think this is really important, is the inhabitants of Gethin. They are kind of different physiologically compared to normal humans. So Genli is kind of like a normal human, so to speak, someone from the planet Earth. So he has the same physiology as us, except that he knows how to communicate telepathically, which is technically a thing in this universe, apparently. But anyway, back to Genli. So he's like a normal human, but the people of Gethin, they, for the most part, they exist in this existence in which they do not have any gender. But every around 28 days, they would actually experience this short period, which lasts for a few days, in which they experience very strong sexual urge. And this stage is something that would call Kemer. And in this stage, they would first experience this surge in sexual desire and sexual urge. And when they approach another person who also happens to be in Kemer, another Gethanian who happens to be in Kemer, one of them would become male and another one would become female. So they would sort of become randomly gendered individuals. And when that happens, they would sort of have intercourse. And maybe one of them would get impregnated. And after that, they just sort of goes back to their non-gendered kind of like body, okay? Except for those who happen to get pregnant during that time. When they get pregnant, they would sort of be pregnant for like months, and after that, once they give birth, they would go back to their non-gendered body as well. And basically every every normal Gethanians would undergo this kind of physiological change. So yeah, it's really interesting, and the implication of that is it really causes the society to be dramatically different from this so-called normal human society, like normal society that we are familiar with. So they have different sets of beliefs, they have different sets of philosophy. It also affects their economy, it definitely affects their politics, so many things. It affects every single part of their lives. So yeah, so that's one thing. And one other thing is really kind of interesting related to that is that because of this, somehow Gethin has never had any war. So war does not exist in Gethin. Like Gethanians definitely kill each other, but they don't really like kill each other in this like massive scale as a war, unlike humans do. So that is another interesting thing that happens in this world, which of course leads to another thing. And this is another implication is that because of this lack of war in Gethin, they also partly because of it, they don't really have like this really advanced technological um, uh, advancements. They don't experience that. So life in Gethin feels much more primitive compared to a human like Genli I. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. And another thing to note about Gethin is that the world is really cold. So it's like the climate is harsh. It's cold and it's harsh. So it definitely affects their politics, their economy, and of course the technological aspect of their life as well. It sort of slows down their life, and probably that's why, again, one of the reasons why the world of Gethin is not very technologically advanced. Like the other planets in this universe are literally like visiting, other planets with their spaceships and stuff. But people in Gethin have not even like seen people flying on planes. Like that's kind of like the level of comparison you could imagine. So yeah, it's sort of interesting. So Jenny has been living here, and he wants to get them to he wants to persuade Gethin to join the Ecumen, but somehow he finds it kind of difficult because of all of these differences in beliefs that the Gethanians have demonstrated to him. So while he is in Gethin, his companion is this person. His name is Estraven. Now, Estraven is a prime minister in one of the two major nations in Gethin, and the nation is called Karhide. And basically, Estraven is the prime minister to the king of Karhide. But then one day they got exiled because of some rather unknown reasons. Like even Genli does not really understand why. I think Estraven got exiled from their country, and after that event, Genli sort of moves to the neighboring country, which is somewhat different ideologically compared to Karhide. That country is called Orgorin, and that country is a bit more of an oligarchy versus Karhide, which is more of a monarchy. And it is basically around this time that Genli really feels, the how the cultural differences in Gethin like really affects his own like way of dealing with the political intrigue that is also going on, the political machinations that are going on with the politicians in both nations in Gethin, because they all want something out of this stranger who literally came from a different planet. They all want something, they all want to gain something politically from this stranger. But because Genli is someone who is a foreigner who still does not really understand well how he should navigate himself in this totally new, strange world, despite being there for 3 years, he sort of ends up in this situation in which he has to trudge through this wide expanse of snow, and it becomes like a major part of this book. It sort of happens at the at the second half of this book. It sort of implies in the cover of this book as well. Basically, Genli has to be in the snow, and his companion will be Estraven, which is someone that he has mistrusted before that. While they're still in Karhide before Estraven was exiled. Now, okay, that's pretty much what all this book is about. Many of the more interesting things, especially when it comes to the themes that this book wants to explore, actually comes when these two characters end up in that end up in this wide expanse of snow, and where they really experience this cold, harsh world. When in their attempts to traverse this like just big snowy area. And I think that part is like the most interesting part, because it is also the part that is very intimate. Now, okay, one thing that I did not mention about this book is why I really like this part, why I think this part is really important, is that even though this book is a sci-fi work, and as someone who is not familiar with sci-fi work, let's be stereotypical here. I would think that this book would just kind of deals with those sci-fi thing, whatever it is. But I think that this book is also very emotional, and that is literally what I look for in every single kind of books. And I feel that this book really shaped how I view sci-fi works in general, and now I'm more excited, I'm more pumped to look for more sci-fi works, because I know that sci-fi works can be humanistic and also emotional. I think that's literally what sci-fi writings, many of the sci-fi writings are striving to achieve. Basically just sort of like portraying human conditions in a totally different kind of setting, a setting that is not like real life. But I guess it's mostly just because I'm a total noob when it comes to this genre. But experiencing this firsthand from this book really allows me to see that it's just like, it feels like a totally new world, but at the same time feels like I was served with something that is kind of familiar. And what I got from this book is that this book, it is literally a book about love. And with all the talks about how Gethans are so different, Gethanians are so different from normal humans that I mentioned earlier, it is in this portion of this book, the second half of this book, in which we see how Gethanians are very much similar with humans. And what it also does is that because of how Gethanians are sort of physiologically different from normal humans, it sort of gives us this kind of strange lens in which we view things that outwardly look different, but actually are experiencing things that are very much the same as us. So there is this sense of familiarity, but at the same time there is also this sense of alienation. And alienation is actually like a very big thing in this book. Basically, we have this main character, Jenny, who is an envoy. He arrives to this planet feeling totally alienated because the culture is so different. He is literally experiencing culture shock. And so there's definitely that element of alienation there. But he's supposed to be kind of like our guide to this world as well. And I feel that he kind of sucks at being the guide into this world, because sometimes I feel that I understand the Gethanians more than he does. But I think the brilliance of this is that, it kind of shows us that, hey, despite living in a new country or a new place for a few years already, it doesn't mean that you're going to be totally assimilated. It doesn't mean that you're going to be like, you're going to fully understand what is going on in that place. In one way, some way or another, you will still feel like a foreigner. And I think that really applies to how it is for us who sort of live in different countries on Earth. How it feels to live in different states, different communities that we're not familiar with. There will always be this sort of distance, but despite this distance, and I think this is what this book really affirms us, is that despite this distance, despite the difference, and in this book it literally is different because Esterven and Jenny I are literally different physiologically. Despite all of these things, there is also this kind of connection that one could feel towards one another. And it is through their journey through the snow that Esterven and Jenny realizes that, hey, they could be friends. In short, that's kind of like what happens in their snowy journey. But the way that it is written is also very heartfelt. It is also very emotional, and I really love that. So if you're the kind of person who likes kind of like I wouldn't say sappy. It can be sappy, but if you like relationship stories, this book definitely has it. It sort of shows like how people who are so different from one another can pretty much arrive to a place where they can actually understand one another. And I think it's just really beautiful. This book is just so beautiful. And if you want something that is beautiful, why not try this book? It is so cool. But most of all, it's just it makes you want to go with the characters. But yeah, literally go for this book if you want a book that talks more about love and acceptance and understanding and respect and connections. So yeah, I think there are so many other things about this book that we can certainly talk more. I really like the way it explores the concept of duality. I think from the cover we can already see like there is the symbol of this yin yang symbol on the cover, and I could tell that even without this cover, Taoism is like a very big influence in this book. In fact, one of the major religions of one of the countries in this book is actually sort of like inspired by Taoism, and the other major religions of the other country in this book is sort of inspired by the Abrahamic religion. Yeah, that's definitely quite fascinating. Check those out. It's I really like the whole exploration of communication breakdown in this book as well. Basically, because Jen Li is from another world and Guin practice like totally different lifestyles. They all have different cultures, and so of course there's kind of like communication breakdown. Estraven, someone from Guin, practices this concept called Shifgritor, which is sort of like pride or honor, something like that, but it's very unique in the context of their lifestyle, the way that they communicate with other people. And generally being someone who does not really understand that concept, feels like Estraven is being like totally shady with them, when in fact Estraven thinks that speaking in indirect manner, which is basically one of the things that they have to do under this concept called Shifgritor, speaking in this roundabout and indirect manner is the respectful way of talking to another person. So there is definitely these differences of communication that that literally happens between people of different cultures. I mean, that's totally familiar, right? So yeah, I think that's interesting too. What else? What else do you think is interesting in this book? I'm sure I can think of many other things, but I would need time, and I would be like, in this book, in this video. But do mention any other things that you find interesting about this book if you have read it. I would be happy to just kind of, talk about it in the comment section below. And if you have read this book, what other thoughts do you have about it? Like, what you feel about this book? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? And let me know in the comments below. I would love to know about all of your thoughts. And I guess that's it for this book. I guess this time I feel like I have so many things to talk about, but then again, I intend to make this casual. So yeah, I'll see you again in a different video. So until then, take care, thanks for watching, and bye.